Today on NewsWatch, inside the mind of a terrorist, see what investigators have discovered about the New York City bombing suspect and his plans to die as a martyr for Islam. Plus, reaching millennials with a message of faith. A new website called FaithWire launches today to point more people to Christ. And
it is quite incredible because I think most of us, when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we think about is ourselves. These people, they get up and they think of these children, and it's just absolutely phenomenal.
how one village has unleashed a miracle of love on a massive scale. Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. The captured suspect in the New York and New Jersey bombing says he wanted to die as a martyr. Newly revealed federal court papers give a chilling glimpse into what authorities say motivated Ahmad Khan Rahami. Dale Hurd is on the story.
Ahmad Khan Rahami promised to martyr himself rather than be caught after setting off explosives in New York and New Jersey. He raged against the U.S. in his journal. You, the U.S. government, continue your slaughter in Afghanistan and elsewhere. Death to your oppression. He praised Osama bin Laden, radical Islamic cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, and Nidal Hassan, the former army officer who went on a deadly shooting rampage in 2009 at Fort Hood, Texas. Rahami openly bought his bomb-making equipment on eBay, including ball bearings and igniters. The FBI confirms it knew about Rahami and spoke with his father in 2014, after the father expressed concerns that the son could be a terrorist, after allegedly stabbing one of his brothers.
Called the FBI 2 years ago. And what did you tell them? I told them you got a connection with this guy.
He later took back those comments, saying his son had simply fallen in with a bad crowd, and the FBI never questioned his son. Rahami was not only accused of stabbing his brother but hitting his mother, but a grand jury declined to indict him. A neighbor of Rahami and a former police officer said Rahami seemed normal and asked him about becoming a police officer.
We would just talk like I'm talking to you now, like just back and forth, like, hey, what's up? What you doing today? Oh, I'm going down the shore. I'm going to do this. Nothing. I never said anything bad about the government. Never asked to see my weapon or anything. Nothing. I mean, just a quiet kid.
He also worked as a security guard in New Jersey, and co-workers say he often expressed sympathy for the terrorist group, the Taliban. A key part of the investigation will be Rahami's year-long trip to Pakistan. While overseas, Rahami married and had 2 children. The FBI questioned his wife overseas. She went to her native Pakistan in June. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
A key Iranian leader says his country will strengthen its military after the U.S. made a deal to give aid to Israel. Iran's chief of staff made the comments during an Iranian military parade in Tehran. Last week, the U.S. signed a new security agreement with Israel to give the Israeli military $38 billion over 10 years. Iran does not recognize Israel's right to exist and supports anti-Israeli terrorist groups like Palestinian Hamas and Lebanon's Hezbollah. The streets of Charlotte, North Carolina erupted in protest Tuesday night after the deadly shooting of a black man by a black police officer. The protest comes after the officer shot and killed 43-year-old Keith Lamont Scott. Police say he was armed and they recovered a gun at the scene. Demonstrators became violent, injuring 12 officers and destroying police vehicles. Dozens of protesters on Interstate 85 were also seen looting semi-trucks and setting their contents on fire on the highway. Meanwhile, a new discovery is shedding light on another police shooting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Investigators found the drug PCP in the car of an unarmed black man who was shot and killed by police. A Colorado artist is being forbidden from disagreeing with the government about the definition of marriage. A state law forces Lori Smith to use her graphic art studio called 303 Creative to promote same-sex weddings. The law prohibits Lori Smith from citing her faith as a reason to decline her web design services to same-sex weddings. She filed a federal lawsuit Tuesday with the help of the Alliance Defending Freedom in hopes that she'll be able to live out her faith freely. An ADF senior counsel, Jeremy Tedesco, said artists shouldn't be threatened with punishment for disagreeing with the government's preferred views. A masked and hooded pro-choice activist smashed pro-life signs on display at Ohio University. The display was created by members of a group called Created Equal. After beating the posters and objects with a club, The attacker turned toward a pro-life staffer who confronted him, threatening him with violence. Law enforcement was then called to the scene. Mark Harrington, National Director of Created Equal, said hooded and masked thugs behaving violently towards a discriminated minority brings back memories of the KKK. In this case, preborn babies are the object of the hatred. Ohio University police are still looking for the suspect. Congress is trying to reach a deal on next year's federal budget. Part of that debate has included a measure to fight the Zika virus, but the plan ran into a major roadblock because Democrats wanted some of the money to go to Planned Parenthood, and Republicans objected. Jenna Browder is on this story.
It's a dire situation. Thousands of Americans infected by the Zika virus. Those most at risk, pregnant women and their unborn babies. But for months, little help from Washington.
The White House asked for emergency Zika funding back in February, but ran into some problems on Capitol Hill. One of its sticking points was whether or not some of the funding should go to Planned Parenthood.
The $1.1 billion bill is designed to fund research to find a vaccine for Zika and also help control the mosquito population. The bill also included a smaller amount for some public health efforts. Republicans said none of that money could go to Planned Parenthood. Democrats objected, though, and held up the bill 3 times, despite saying for months that the funding had been needed right away. Democrats said women often had no other place to go, but Republicans argued the Democrats were simply protecting one of their special interests and pointed out that President Obama's original Zika funding request didn't mention Planned Parenthood, and the bill did allow Planned Parenthood to possibly get more federal money, although not directly. Many pro-life conservatives were unhappy because the move could have meant more taxpayer money for Planned Parenthood. Some Republicans, like Senator Marco Rubio, said they were willing to compromise.
I think one of the fundamental obligations of the federal government is to keep us safe, including from a public health threat such as this.
And he hoped other lawmakers agreed. The Zika bill is attached to next year's spending bill, which Congress must pass by the end of the month to avoid a government shutdown. Meantime, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has been watching and waiting.
By the end of this month, we will be out of money to respond effectively.
And many said that the vote would be not a moment too soon for the millions of Americans on edge. Reporting in Orlando, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
The impasse over Zika funding has been resolved, and it looks like Planned Parenthood's affiliated clinics in Puerto Rico will get some direct federal funding. But other issues remain, and the Senate still needs to work out the details on the government funding bill. Top Christian leaders from across the country are coming together today to pray for America's return to God. The gathering is a national prayer event which you can join live at cbnnews.com at 1 o'clock Eastern today. More than 40 leaders are believing for changes in families, communities, and the nation.
America desperately needs church leaders and everyday Christians to come together in a bond of unity. We therefore can be salt to this culture, and we can kind of bring America back from the precipice over which she is beginning to move and to fall.
The gathering include Max Lucado, Ann Graham Lotz, and Samuel Rodriguez. Coming up, people doing good works and broken lives beautifully restored. We will show you the new initiative to spread a message of faith, hope, and love. County commissioners in North Carolina can open their meetings with Christian prayers. That is the ruling from a divided 3-judge panel on the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals. The ACLU sued the Rowan County Commission in 2013 on behalf of 3 people who said starting the meeting with prayers that almost always referred to Christianity was coercive and discriminatory. But the court said the commissioner's practice falls within recognized tradition and doesn't force non-Christians to take part. These days, most people under the age of 40 get their news from smartphones, tablets, or computers. Just ask a millennial the last time they turned on a television to watch the news, and the answer could be never. In order to meet this growing digital demand, CBN is launching FaithWire across the social media spectrum. Caitlin Burke shows us why we believe it will be a game changer.
Millennials see life and look for meaning through a variety of platforms. That includes how they find news. Call it a shift in perspective. FaithWire's goal is to reach young people where they are and show them what God is doing in the world.
This generation is revolutionizing the way stories are told, how the world thinks and acts. And FaithWire plans to be there, not only funneling information, but encouraging a shared experience.
From smartphones to tablets, people's stories are everywhere. FaithWire will showcase examples of small beginnings, triumphs, and hope, told by a diverse team of contributors, including former Miss America, Kirsten Hagland.
Hey guys, I'm Kirsten, and I'm so excited to be starting to record my podcast. It's going to be called the Sonder Podcast. It's going to be on faithwire.com coming up September 21st. So make sure you click and listen, and I'll be excited to chat with you. So talk to you soon.
Another story, God in Gotham, takes viewers to New York City for an untold phenomenon of spiritual growth and rebirth in the Big Apple.
There is a movement happening, and it's happening in the last place that you'd expect. An insane amount of people, young people, millennials, are flocking to church here in New York City.
Famed church planner and pastor Tim Keller says the number of gospel-teaching churches here has nearly doubled in just 5 years.
Church for me used to be a place where I felt like I always had to be perfect. And C3 allows me to embrace my imperfections and know that God still loves me regardless. So it's changed my image about church because I know I can still be a human with flaws and still be loved by God, which is not an idea I had before.
All part of FaithWire's mission to spread light and give a generation that refuses to be boxed in a way out.
And to learn more about the stories FaithWire is doing, you can visit the website today. It is faithwire.com, and make sure that you follow them on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Up next, the Bible says God puts the lonely in families. See how one village has achieved that mission for hundreds of thousands of Chinese orphans. It all started with a simple message from the Bible about caring for widows and orphans. So 70 families in a small village in China set out to help children in a nearby orphanage. And as George Thomas reports, that mission soon grew on a massive scale as a Christian organization placed orphans into new families all across China.
For 18 years, Robert Glover has had a dream. To see 1 million Chinese children moved from orphanages into local, loving families. That dream is becoming a reality in a corner of China's Hunan province.
And it was just so remarkable. You know, what was going on in this village was the dream that we had been anticipating.
It all started a few years back when families in Yangjai village set out to change the lives of children in a nearby orphanage.
And I think the amazing thing is they started to really go deep and study the Bible, and they found this bit about widows and orphans, and it really just impacted them.
And these weren't ordinary children.
The children had a very tough life before they were found by the policeman or be collected to the orphanage.
They've been abandoned, and you imagine being abandoned in a city at a very young age and not having anyone to fend for you. And we know where the children have maternal deprivation, they will develop sometimes mental illness, physical illness, and even die.
These children lived in a Chinese government institution. They had the infrastructure and all the facilities, but
they're not able to get any kind of family love or care.
Glover's team discovered something special about the village.
People here, they give their real heart to the children. They love the children, and they support each other.
And that became evident when 70 families became foster parents to 170 children.
All the children were placed with this village from the Kunming orphanage, and up to 99% have difficulties, physically and mentally.
That didn't matter to the villagers. You see, the majority of Yangjai is Christian, and the families knew that this was the right thing to do.
It is quite incredible because I think most of us, when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we think about is ourselves. These people, they get up and they think of these children, and it's just absolutely phenomenal.
Their act of love had a profound impact, bringing the community together like never before.
This is the dream that has come true. To see, not only the mothers and fathers, but the brothers and sisters, the uncles and aunties, and then the extended family, the whole community come together.
Glover believes what families in Yangjai are doing should be the model for taking care of orphaned and vulnerable children.
And all those people working in institutions are going to suddenly think, oh, I'm going to lose my job. So there's going to be a bit of a fight and a battle on. The better way is to say, let's work within the institution and retrain some of the staff to move with the children into the community as support workers.
Glover is the founder of Care for Children, an organization that teaches government-run institutions how to move children from the orphanage into local families. He says he's simply practicing a biblical model.
And we just come back simply to that point. God made the family for children.
So far, Care for Children has placed more than 300,000 Chinese children in families across the country.
The government has realized, the academics have realized, a lot of the NGOs are here. I think it's the church that's behind. The Christian church needs to wake up.
In 2003, the Chinese government invited Glover and his family to move to Beijing so they could introduce this family-based care throughout the country. As a result, the government took a historic step in 2014 by changing legislation to state that family placement is a positive alternative to institutional care.
I shed a tear because it took 17 years for them to change that legislation. It took lots of children's transformations to change that legislation. And I think that is, phenomenal, because that's not about me. That's about a faithful God.
China says it has 576,000 orphans, but outside groups put the number closer to 1 million. Glover says many of the families taking in orphans are Christians.
The biggest Christian revival in world history is happening now in China. And so as that's happening and we're placing children in the family, it's not surprising that the families that are coming forward are the Christian.
For the 70 foster families in Yangjai village, the experience has been life-changing.
特别的爱他们，他们对我们对自己亲生的还要那么想我们也是那样的爱他们。
有的，但是困难总可以解决嘛，困难是少的嘛，是吧？最开心，很开心的，
For the children, it has been equally transforming.
我爱爸爸妈妈。
Glover says the smiles here remind him of the dream God put in his heart to help transform the lives of a generation of children across China.
What we're giving these children is an opportunity to have that identity and security and love, nurture in a family and a community.
George Thomas, CBN News.
God calls us to care for the least of these, and they are indeed so beautiful. Stay with us. We're coming back with more of CBN NewsWatch. Operation Blessing helps people around the world every single day, but you don't always get to meet them. Well, Rocio is a single mom raising 3 children, and she also is caring for her own mother. So when she lost her only source of income, she didn't know what to do until she met a team from Operation Blessing.
Rocio is pretty sure why her boat sank into the shallow waters of the Amazon River near her home, even though it seemed fine the night before.
The next day, I found my canoe sunken, muddy and torn.
Rocio had constantly patched the old wooden boat over the years. She used it as a water taxi to ferry people up and down the river. After her husband abandoned her, it was the only source of income to provide for her elderly mother and 3 children. Now, her boat was gone.
I said to myself, how can I use it now? I was so desperate.
We learned about Rocio's situation through her son's preschool, which is supported by Operation Blessing. First, we provided the family with an emergency supply of food. Then, we hired a local craftsman to build Rocio a new boat.
I am so relieved and happy because I have this new boat to provide for my children.
Now, Rocio is busier than ever, and her new water taxi always seems to be full of passengers.
Thank you, Operation Blessing, for giving me a beautiful boat. I feel very happy.
And you can find more encouraging stories about how Operation Blessing is helping people at their website. It is ob.org. It is now time for your Wednesday word, and today's word is open. Consider this. With each new day that God opens your eyes, open your heart to His unlimited possibilities, and then open your mouth to give Him thanks. That position of gratitude will position you in a posture to receive His best for you, and that is the perfect place to be. With that word, make sure that you make this a wonderful Wednesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make this a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.